Imagine a federal judge just gave the green light to completely change how your mail-in ballot gets delivered.
Right, and the mechanism for that change is wild. It basically relies on turning the United States Postal Service into a frontline election security checkpoint.
Yeah, which is a massive shift. And that is the core of the breaking news we are jumping into for our deep dive today.
Exactly.
So just to set the stage, President Trump signed an executive order to tighten mail-in voting rules and mandate citizenship checks.
And, almost immediately, Democratic leadership and activist groups sued to block it. They wanted to stop this thing cold before the midterm.
Right. But U.S. District Judge Carl Nichols just threw out that lawsuit, which hands a massive legal victory to the supporters of the order.
A huge victory.
Hmm.
But the twist here is that the judge didn't actually rule on whether the order follows the Constitution.
Oh, right. He just called it premature.
Yeah, he dismissed the lawsuit because the new rules haven't actually taken effect yet.
Which is such a fascinating legal angle. So today, our mission is to unpack the actual text of this executive order, the judge's 26-page ruling, and the specific claims driving this enormous political fight.
But before we get into the weeds, we really need to put a quick disclaimer out there about our sources today.
Yes, absolutely.
One of our main sources is a highly partisan political video, and we're here to impartially report the claims and the statistics they present.
Right, we are strictly neutral here.
Exactly. Our goal is just to help you understand the arguments driving this debate. We are absolutely not taking sides or endorsing any of these viewpoints.
We just want to lay out the facts of what the sources say so you can see the whole picture, and evaluate the claims yourself.
Spot on. So let's look at what this executive order actually does.
Okay, yeah. Let's break down the mechanics. It basically attacks the current mail-in system using 4 main federal directives.
And the first one is a doozy.
It really is. So, Directive Number 1 tasks the Department of Homeland Security and the Social Security Administration with building comprehensive lists of eligible citizens for every single state.
Right off the bat, that is just an astronomical data project.
I mean, how do they even do that?
Well, the logistical hurdle is staggering because the U.S. doesn't actually have a single centralized database of all citizens.
Right, it's all fragmented.
Exactly. Homeland Security handles immigration and naturalization, while Social Security handles tax and retirement records.
So they have to mash those together.
Yeah, the order requires these agencies to merge all these totally separate databases, cross-reference them, and somehow produce a flawless list of eligible voters.
For states that currently manage their own voter rolls.
Exactly.
Wow. And then once they create these master lists, the order hands the baton over to the U.S. Postal Service.
Right, which brings us to the second directive.
Yeah, suddenly the Postal Service is required to use these new federal lists to make sure they only deliver mail-in ballots to verified citizens.
Which fundamentally changes the job of a mail carrier.
It completely changes it. Think about it like a nightclub. Imagine the promoter writes this massive VIP guest list, right?
Okay, I'm with you.
But they don't actually give the list to the bouncer at the door. So the bouncer, which is the Postal Service in this case, is suddenly told they have to cross-reference every ID with a database they don't even own.
Right, all while a line of thousands of people wraps around the block.
Exactly. It's an impossible spot to be in.
And that bouncer role is totally unprecedented for a federal delivery agency. Historically, the division of labor in our elections is super clear.
Because the states run the elections.
Yes, the Constitution gives individual states the power to run their own elections. They set the rules, manage the voter rolls, print the ballots, mail them out.
And the federal government just delivers the mail.
Right. They merely operate the delivery system.
Okay.
But this executive order attempts to bypass state authority by basically regulating the envelope rather than the ballot itself.
Because the Postal Service is a federal agency, so the administration can control how it operates.
Exactly. They found a loophole. The states technically run the elections, but the federal government controls the delivery mechanism.
Wow. So if a state refuses to verify citizenship to this new federal standard, the federal government just uses the mail to force the issue.
They absolutely do.
And the third and fourth directives really put teeth into this enforcement.
Wow, big time.
So Directive 3 directs the Attorney General to prioritize prosecuting anyone who sends ballots to ineligible voters.
And Directive 4 goes straight for the wallet.
Yeah, the government will actually withhold federal funds from states that refuse to comply with these new delivery standards.
So they're using the power of the purse to mandate state compliance.
Which is incredibly aggressive. And that aggressive shift is exactly why activist groups and Democratic leaders immediately filed a lawsuit.
They argued the federal government was totally trampling on state rights to run elections.
But that brings us back to Judge Nichols. If this order is such a historic shift, why did he throw the lawsuit out without even holding a trial on the main arguments?
Well, the dismissal hinges on a really foundational legal concept called standing.
Standing. Okay, break that down for us.
So Article 3 of the Constitution requires that a plaintiff suffer an actual concrete injury before they can sue someone in federal court.
So you have to be hurt right now.
Exactly. You cannot sue the government over some hypothetical policy that, might cause you harm in the future. You have to prove you are bleeding right now.
And the judge basically asked to see the wound, and these activist groups couldn't produce one.
Right. In his 26-page opinion, Judge Nichols said the groups lacked a, quote, single shred of actual harm.
A single shred? That's strong language.
It is, because he pointed out the mechanical realities of the order. It merely tells federal agencies to begin the process of drafting new rules.
Oh, so it doesn't actually do anything yet.
Exactly. It doesn't instantly remove any voters from the rolls. It doesn't intercept any ballots today. It just tells Homeland Security and the Postal Service to start writing a plan.
And building those lists and overhauling postal protocols, that's going to take months.
If not longer. And furthermore, the judge noted the order explicitly requires the agencies to comply with existing federal laws, like the Privacy Act.
Okay, so he looked at the Democrats' arguments and basically called their fears speculative.
Yeah, he actually called their lawsuit an attenuated chain of possibilities.
An attenuated chain of possibilities. So he's saying they are stacking up a massive tower of what-ifs.
Precisely. Just think about the sequence of events that would have to happen for a single voter to be disenfranchised under this order.
Okay, let's walk through it. First, Homeland Security has to build the database.
Right. Second, the database has to contain an error regarding a specific citizen.
Third, the Postal Service has to adopt a rule using that specific flawed data.
Fourth, a mail carrier actually has to follow that rule and physically intercept a ballot.
And finally, that specific voter has to be unable to vote in person as a backup.
Exactly. So the judge looked at all that and determined it involves way too much guesswork about future government actions.
You just can't base a federal lawsuit on a chain of pessimistic guesses.
You really can't.
But I have to push back a little here because in their lawsuit, the activist groups argued they are experiencing immediate financial harm right now.
Right. The financial argument.
Yeah, they claimed they're being forced to divert thousands of dollars away from their normal operations just to educate voters about these incoming rules.
And to fight the executive order in court.
Exactly. So in the eyes of an activist group, draining their budget to fight a policy feels like a very real, very current injury.
And that is a super common legal tactic in civil rights lawsuits. But the judge firmly rejected it.
He didn't buy it.
Not at all. He actually cited Supreme Court precedent addressing this exact strategy. Basically, organizations cannot engage in manufactured standing.
Manufactured standing, meaning they are creating their own injury.
Yes. They are inflicting harm on themselves based on their own fear of hypothetical future events.
So they can't voluntarily spend money on activism and then sue the government for the financial damage they cause themselves.
Exactly. The court views that as a self-inflicted wound. It wasn't caused by the executive order itself.
But it is super important to note here that Judge Nichols did not declare the executive order constitutional or legal.
No, not at all. He simply declared the lawsuit premature.
So he left the door wide open for these exact same groups to sue again later.
Oh, absolutely. The moment the federal agencies finish writing the rules and the Postal Service actually implements the new procedures, they can sue again.
So the legal battle is really just paused, waiting for the administrative process to catch up.
Yeah, the lawyers are just waiting in the wings.
But while they wait, the political battle over mail-in voting is really intensifying.
It is. And to understand why the administration felt compelled to issue this order in the first place, we have to look at the specific claims they're using to justify it.
Right, because they didn't just issue this in a vacuum. They are reacting to vulnerabilities they believe are currently plaguing the system.
Exactly. And our source material today details the core argument driving this push for federal oversight.
And again, keeping in mind our disclaimer, We are just looking at the claims presented in the source.
Right, so supporters of the executive order claim the current state-run mail-in system is fundamentally insecure and vulnerable to widespread manipulation.
And they point to specific data anomalies from the 2020 election to build this case.
Yeah, they aren't just throwing around vague accusations. The source uses concrete numbers and active tracking systems to argue their points.
So let's walk through the mechanics of these claims because they get very specific, starting with Arizona.
Okay, Arizona.
The source highlights that 23,344 mail-in ballots went to addresses where residents had officially filed national change of address forms.
Right. The National Change of Address System is a formal database maintained by the Postal Service.
So when you move, you fill out an official form so the post office knows to forward your mail.
Exactly. And the source really emphasizes this point. They aren't relying on, like, neighborhood gossip. They're pointing to official federal records proving the intended voter no longer lived at that address.
And the mechanism here is crucial because election mail usually includes instructions that say do not forward.
Right. So if a voter moves and files that form, the post office is supposed to return the ballot to the county, not send it to the new house.
But the source claims that people actually cast votes on over 23,000 of those ballots, even though the registered voter had officially moved away.
And they highlight that specific number because the 2020 presidential election in Arizona was decided by only 10,000 votes.
Wow. So the volume of these allegedly compromised ballots is more than double the margin of victory.
Exactly. They use this data point to argue that state voter rolls are disastrously outdated.
Which results in live ballots flooding into mailboxes accessible to people who really shouldn't have them.
That's their core argument there.
Okay, so then the source moves to a second, even larger claim out of Arizona, and this one focuses entirely on the digital chain of custody.
Right, the digital records.
They assert that 74,243 mail-in ballots returned to the state lacked a clear digital record, proving the state ever actually mailed them out in the first place.
Which sounds crazy. To understand how a ballot can exist without a record of being sent, we have to look at the barcode tracking system.
The EV32 and EV33 forms, right?
Exactly. The source details this specific paperwork. In Arizona, the system relies on these two primary records.
So what exactly is an EV32?
An EV32 record is generated the exact moment the county prints a mail-in ballot and hands it over to the Postal Service.
Yeah.
It's basically the official outbound receipt.
Okay, outbound receipt, got it. And the EV33?
That one is generated when the voter mails the completed ballot back and the county scans the envelope when they get it. So that is the official inbound receipt.
So the math here should be incredibly simple. Every inbound EV33 receipt requires a corresponding outbound EV32 receipt.
Right, because you cannot return something that was never sent to you.
Exactly. So what did the source find?
Well, they claim their analysis of the digital records revealed nearly 75,000 inbound ballots that completely lacked an outbound record.
75,000 missing records.
Yeah. They argue this massive discrepancy points to a severe breakdown in the chain of custody.
Which raises the question, was it a catastrophic software glitch? Or does it indicate someone illicitly inserted ballots into the system?
And that's exactly what the source is questioning.
Okay, so those were the Arizona claims, which are very focused on databases and software, but the claims out of Pennsylvania are much more physical.
Oh, yeah, much more dramatic.
The source moves away from digital tracking and points to the physical chain of custody handled by third-party vendors.
Right. They highlight allegations regarding empty trailers filled with shredded mail-in ballot applications intended for Donald Trump.
Which is a very vivid image. So this claim really targets the privatization of election logistics, right?
It does. Because a lot of people don't realize this, but many states and political campaigns just do not have the internal infrastructure to print and mail millions of ballot applications.
Right, they have to outsource it.
Exactly. They outsource this massive undertaking to private marketing and printing companies.
And these vendors are entrusted with huge databases of voter information, plus the actual physical materials required to request a ballot.
Right. And the source specifically names a vendor location in Pennsylvania, claiming that thousands of applications meant for Republican voters were just never mailed out.
They alleged the vendor shredded the documents instead and hid the remains in trailers on their property.
And they use this vivid visual shredded documents in trailers to argue that the privatization of mail-in voting creates these massive blind spots.
So ballots and applications can just disappear or be destroyed before a voter even gets the chance to participate.
That's the argument, yeah.
So we are looking at three distinct mechanisms of alleged failure here. We have outdated residency databases, broken digital tracking systems, and compromised third-party vendors.
Right. And, the ultimate truth or falsehood of these specific claims is almost secondary to understanding their political impact today.
Because this is the foundation for the administration's policy.
Exactly. The administration looks at these specific statistics, the 23,000 change of address votes, the missing outbound records, the shredded applications, and uses them to build a narrative.
A narrative that states are inherently incapable of managing the complexities of mass mail-in voting.
Yes, they argue the state systems are porous, they're vulnerable, and therefore the federal government must step in and plug the holes.
Which is how they justify threatening to withhold federal funds from non-compliant states.
And how they justify pushing the Postal Service to act as a strict verification checkpoint.
They basically view the federal mail system as the only remaining failsafe.
That's exactly how they see it.
So the battle over how you cast your vote is undergoing a fundamental shift right now.
It really is. I mean, for generations, election integrity focused on the rules at your local polling place.
Right, like checking IDs at the gymnasium door, monitoring the voting booths, securing the physical ballot boxes.
But as we approach the midterm elections, that battleground is moving. It's moving from the local precinct to the federal mail sorting facility.
Which means this story is far from over. Right now, federal agencies are working behind closed doors. Homeland Security and Social Security are attempting this monumental task of merging databases to build those citizenship lists.
And the Postal Service is drafting protocols to figure out how its letter carriers will actually verify eligibility out in the field.
And the moment those agencies publish the final rules, the activist groups will instantly file their lawsuits again.
Oh, without a doubt. The judge explicitly invited them to return once the actual harm materializes.
So the moment a postal worker receives an instruction to intercept a ballot, that legal shield of premature timing completely vanishes.
And the true constitutional battle will begin in earnest.
Absolutely. We started this deep dive by exploring a federal judge's decision to allow a massive shift in election policy to move forward. But I want to leave you with a final thought to ponder as these federal agencies continue their work.
It's a big one.
It is. If this executive order takes full effect, the United States Postal Service will transform from a neutral and visible delivery service into an active, frontline enforcer of election integrity. How might that fundamental shift change your relationship with the mail carrier who walks up to your house every single day?